Hello, good afternoon everybody. My name is Charles Malki. I am a real estate attorney, and it's a great pleasure to be surrounded by so many professionals and professionals that actually take an interest in this real estate market and want to learn a little bit more to keep their professions ahead of the curve. As we're all aware, and what Thea has brought to my attention and wanted me to make the focus of today's meeting on is on fraud and the fraud issues that we're seeing in this real estate market. My typical presentations usually involve short sales and what is a short sale, but that's all. I'm hoping all of you guys are the experts now with the short sales. I did reserve one slide to kind of just go over what it is. If some of you have questions as it relates to maybe some other principles, feel free to ask me some questions towards the end of the presentation. I'm going to try to get through all of this in, I guess I got about 20 minutes. So I'm going to try to pace myself to accomplish that goal, and then I'll be taking a few questions towards the end of it, and I'll be here afterwards to help answer any other questions or how I can hopefully help in your practices as well. Just with a show of hands, how many individuals here are realtors? If you can raise your hand. Are there any other attorneys that are in the audience today? I know sometimes I'm doing presentations with attorneys out there. Are there any title companies? I know I met 2. There's about 4 or 5 out there. Making me nervous. There we go. No, second. And there isn't a clicker, is there? I can touch it, it's fine. That's easy. So I'm going to hide here maybe in the corner a little bit more so I can touch the computer as we go. The 2 companies that I own are Florida Real Estate Law Group, which is my law firm, and I'm also the owner of Florida's Esquire Realty, which is the brokerage. Today we're going to be talking about the new era real estate environment. We're going to be discussing, the fact that we're obviously dealing in a market with falling prices, but being that we also have some of the lowest interest rates with some of our closings, I'll just share with all of you, and being that you guys are active realtors, interest rates right now are somewhere between, I've done a closing last week at 3.75%, just so you guys know that that exists. Most of my closings are usually somewhere closer to about 4.5% to 5%, but as I said, there are interest rates that are still below 4% for those buyers that are looking for aggressive rates, and we know that we're dealing with interest rates that haven't existed in the last 20 to 30 years. That's what's pulling and bringing the buyers to the table, in addition to the fact that we're dealing with prices that are well below the cost to build. The challenging times is the fact that the majority of our sales right now, and somewhere between 50 to maybe as upward as 75, if not greater than that, with properties that are either REOs, as we all know, that are the bank-owned properties, and we're also dealing with the short sales, which requires a lot more time, energy, and effort than the traditional sale. Today's topics, we're going to be discussing fraud in today's real estate market. We're going to discuss as they relate to REOs and short sales. And then we're also going to be discussing the unauthorized practice of law issues as it relates to lawyers and realtors. At Florida Real Estate Law Group, our areas of practice are with short sale negotiations. And I've underlined the word negotiations. If there's something that you guys can walk away from today, remember that if you are not an attorney, you're facilitating the transaction. You're not negotiating the terms of the short sale. So keep some of these key words in mind. You're not the negotiator, you're facilitating the transaction. Use the word negotiations as we get towards the end of this presentation. You'll see that you may be putting yourself in a position where you may be practicing law. We also do title, assisting associations with collecting past due fees, and then part of also my strength as a practice, and maybe something that you guys can walk away with as well, is strengthening communities through the short sale process. One short sale at a time is helping a community avoid foreclosure and also losing more of their HOAs than if you can get involved with the community presidents, with the board, and let them know I am your expert realtor for your community, and let me show you what I can do to help at least get the property values close to where they are today, rather than letting the property go into foreclosure and sell for half of what it's worth, and damaging the neighboring properties. Our mission statement is to provide an unparalleled, passionate, creative, results-oriented legal team, service to our clients and their businesses, and to serve as a primary resource and partner in all aspects of our personal and business growth and development. Our commitment to quality and professionalism is the hallmark of our firm's success. This here's our team, and it consists of myself, Helen Hines, another attorney, Yelda Aiden, receptionist, accountant, Joel Wiggum, who's a legal assistant with 20 years mortgage background, and Elizabeth Felipe, our title agent. Today's cycles, I'm just going to open them all up. The foreclosures are soaring. If you guys don't know, there is a halt right now with the foreclosures, and there was so many errors with some of the larger law firms, I don't want to use their names today, where they've fraudulently notarized documents, they fabricated documents, they took homes away from people without following all the due process requirements. For example, with people that are in the military, returning back home and all of a sudden their homes are gone. All of these issues have caused the bank to just say stop. A lot of these law firms have been fired, other attorneys are being substituted in. All this is causing delay, and even though there's still a backlog of foreclosure, and whatever cycles that were happening already have all been brought to a halt as a result of these larger law firms and their mistakes. But we can't expect another rush with these foreclosures in the very near future. The fact is that we're somewhere between 50 and 75% of all current South Florida sales are short sales and foreclosures, but it shouldn't be foreclosures, it should be REOs, the bank-owned properties. From 2010 and 2012, and this is coming from Fannie Mae, the number of short sales are expected to double. So we're right now in 2011. So as bad as it is this year, as bad as it was last year, next year there's going to be that much more business to do in REOs and short sales. You need to know your stuff now. You need to know what you can and cannot do so you can do more good business. There's a higher inventory on the way, and then the question, price appreciation or price depreciation, it really depends on the community, but overall, with all this extra inventory, we can expect the prices to fall, hopefully just a little bit more, and not much more. The short sale myth. This is one of my favorite slides, which we use the word short, people expect things to be fast or something else, and it's actually just the opposite. A short sale is actually a long sale with short money. The banks are typically trying to net more money at closing, and it affects all of us. The title companies, the attorneys involved, the realtors involved, all of us sometimes have to lose a little bit to help facilitate the transaction, and they take time. The average short sale negotiation is usually somewhere between 2 and 4 months. If it goes over 4 months, there's usually a buyer that's not cooperating, a seller that's not cooperating, documents aren't being submitted in time. There's usually some mistake or some contribution that's just not being made. The issues that come up in a short sale are how will it affect my credit, which I'm not going to touch upon today because I got to get to the fraud issue with the next couple of slides. Will it affect both husband and wife? What are the tax consequences? Will I be responsible for the amount of forgiveness? Are topics I'd love to share with you guys on another date, or just call me. I'd be happy to answer these questions later. The short sale, I'm just going to throw the definition because the fraud is going to relate to the short sale discussion. A short sale occurs when a lender agrees to accept less than the full payoff amount in order to fully satisfy the seller's existing mortgage secured by the property to facilitate the closing of a real estate transaction. We all have seen or heard or something short sales, but just from a show of hands, if you're doing a short sale, does it mean that the lender is actually forgiving the deficiency balance? No. Is that a yes or a no?
No.
No. So we all know that the bank can accept a short sale, but the bank can also reserve the rights to still go after a deficiency.
Right.
If we had this discussion about a year or two ago, you would think that a short sale means you're bringing a buyer in consideration for bringing the buyer, the bank's forgiving it. So as soon as you see the approval letter, everybody's jumping up and down and everybody closes, not knowing that the bank's going to be calling you the next year now trying to collect the deficiency, or the homeowner, not you as the realtors. So this market is changing. The banks know that they can get away with more, and we've got to do a little bit more work to make sure what are those terms, and hence the importance of making sure that you have an attorney. If at any point in that last hour to at least review the approval letter, and have the parties acknowledge what they're agreeing to. Fraud. Definition of fraud. It's an intentional deception to induce another to part with something of value or to surrender a legal right for personal gain. I'm going to repeat it again. Fraud, an intentional. You're intending to deceive. You're lying. To induce another to part with something of value or to surrender a legal right. So you're giving up money. Somebody's giving up more than what they otherwise would have because of that lie, and then for personal gain. REO fraud. Where does the REO fraud exist? And I deal with a lot of clients where they're saying, we're putting in, I'm actually going to review the slide first and I'll give you the example. The agent has a duty, typically to the lender, to submit the highest and the best offers to the asset manager, and I wrote of the BO property instead of REO, the bank-owned property. It must be an arm's length transaction, and then we all know that typically these REO agents and realtors and brokers typically also associate themselves with a circle of investors. And what the realtors and the brokers are setting themselves up to do is to, if the banks actually give a really good REO price to list the property for, and the broker and the agents know that they can sell it for more, they sell it to one of their in-house investors. They make sure that that sale happens. They have the opportunity to pick up another listing. They put it on the market now for what it's worth. But you can see that there's a lie right in there, being that they didn't put it on the market. They didn't accept all the offers. They're giving it to one of their investor groups. That's a situation, and I want, again, to open your eyes to the fact that when you're putting offers on REOs, you need to find out and pinpoint who are those realtors and those brokers that are basically shielding and selling these properties for less because they're trying to keep it within their circle of investors and buyers so that they can relist it again and make another commission. And they're not working in the best interest of the bank, which is the reason that they actually got employed and selected by the bank to be ethical and to represent the bank's interest as their agent. That's one issue that we're seeing out there.